Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Death, dying, and taxes. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about all three.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, five-time author and fiduciary, the money missionary himself, Tony Walker.
Welcome to the Worry-Free Retirement, and I am Tony Walker, and glad to have you with us today. For about the next 28 minutes or so, we're going to go on a journey specifically designed with the saver in mind. We're glad to have you with us. Today's recording is November 14th, 2017, and with us at the helm, of course, producing the show as always, is America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orander. Well, we had a great workshop last night in Louisville, Kentucky. Of course, by the time you'll have seen this, we had another one in Bowling Green, Kentucky. The title of last night's workshop, of course, it came from this little booklet here, Mailbox Money for Life, was the name of the workshop, Mailbox Money for Life. Incidentally, we have plenty of these booklets left. We had to reorder them, quite frankly. We had so many flying off the shelves here, but we do have some more booklets. It's not too late if you'd like to get a free copy of Mailbox Money for Life. Just go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, scroll down, and where you see that little icon, we'll be happy to mail you a free copy, no cost or obligation. So why did I start off this show's topic when we were going to talk about mailbox money, which I will, and I said death, dying, and taxes? Because it was interesting during last night's workshop, a question came up, specifically, several questions actually, around this same theme. What many people were wondering about when we talk about mailbox money, remember mailbox money, the definition of mailbox money is guaranteed income you can never outlive. So several people were saying, well, Tony, my big concern is what happens to the money when I die? Or Tony, is this money I can leave for my spouse so that he or she can have mailbox money for the rest of their life? And if so, what happens when both of us die? So one of my comments to the folks, and they got a little hee-haw out of this, was I said, well, you know what, folks, this stuff would be easy to plan for if we all knew when we were going to die. And not to make light of this subject of death, but recently I did lose a client, and the client had just become a new client, had had early stages of cancer which progressed very rapidly, and has since passed away. And quite frankly, because we knew that death was coming, actually the planning and all the things that we had to do, everything was very, very organized, which is really a lot of our subject today, is why do people continue to procrastinate doing things today, and instead they keep putting it off for tomorrow? Well, folks, tomorrow eventually we'll get here, and if you're not organized, this stuff is going to hit the fan for somebody. So we're going to go over some of the slides I covered last night, and why so many people at last night's workshop, I've never had this happen before. Even several people that had been to prior workshops said, Tony, you have got to share this information with people. This is the first time I've ever really seen what you do. So some of the cases, you know, we provide educational workshops. I've done these for years. You know, a lot of people provide free steak dinners. We provide free information. And last night was the first time that I've ever taken specific scenarios and kind of done a deep dive so that they could understand the difference between a game plan, such as the Worry-Free Retirement, versus just buying a product from somebody and not having a clue how to use that product properly between now and the time you eventually pass away. Because let's face it, folks, if money is never used, think about this. I don't care if you got $4 million in a 401k plan. If money is not used and enjoyed during your lifetime, and especially if there's no game plan in place to try to efficiently pass that money on when you die, what's the point? I mean, really, has it been a successful venture if you're never really organized, if you don't know how to use the money, if you're paying taxes, if when you die everybody else is burdened with this money in some cases? What is the point? So we're going to talk about that during the show, and then I'm going to save plenty of time to go over some scenarios of how we appropriately use mailbox money, and hopefully you'll be like these people last night and say, Tony, I think I understand now why you're so different from all the rest of the people out there that are just peddling products. You are really trying to provide people a game plan. So what we're going to do, we're going to cover a couple of slides leading into our next segment, which will be some detailed deep dives of 4 various scenarios. Now, I know we covered this the other day lightly, but I want to go into these scenarios a little more deeply because they're very, very important to help you understand how mailbox money can be used not only if you're 70 or older, we call that second half of life, if you're in your 60s, I call that halftime, or if you're early 50s, for instance, or even younger than that. That would be what we call the first half of life. We're going to go over that in detail. Well, let's go back a little bit in history, and I shared this last night. It's very important to understand that when my grandfather retired in 1978, here's a couple of pictures of him. He started with Bell South in 1932. Okay, so back then, most people didn't have good jobs. If you landed a gig with somebody, in this case, if you're climbing telephone poles with Bell South, you took it, right? Because unemployment was at 25% in 1932. So in those days, they would promise you a lifetime income, mailbox money, they called it a pension, if you stayed around and worked for them all your life, which Granddad did. Here's another picture of him when he was graduated and left the telephone poles and ended up in the engineering office there in Frankfurt for Bell South. And then finally we fast forward to 1978. There's myself and Granddad with his favorite cat, Inky, sitting on the porch. Look at that porch, folks. Look at the columns there. You say, "Why? Granddad must have been lazy. How come he didn't paint those columns?" It's because Granddad didn't care. You know, back then people lived a very low-key lifestyle. As long as things were in working order, you know, which Granddad could fix anything, he was fine. So Granddad and Hazel didn't spend a lot of money and didn't need to. They had mailbox money from their pension and mailbox money from their Social Security. So what's the problem, Tony? How come it was so easy for Granddad to retire, and why is it so difficult and scary for people of this generation who are thinking about retiring, or worse yet, have already retired and starting to worry about this gig a little bit? Well, let me show you a powerful graphic here, and these are some key points I want to remind you of. First of all, in 1978, the reason why Granddad could retire so easily, but not so easy for people of today, is number one, Granddad didn't have to worry about trusting anyone with his money. Think about this. He had a pension plan, which Bell South in those days was very strong. We assume AT&T is still strong, but back then people didn't worry about it. Bell South was going to make that pension payment for the rest of Granddad's life. He wasn't worried about it. The next thing Granddad had was Social Security. Again, 1978, nobody was worried about Social Security running out of money like they are today. And finally, since the 401k wasn't even around back then, Granddad did not have to have any investments. He had zero money in the stock market or in growth mutual funds because he didn't need it. They didn't have 401ks, and he wasn't about to risk his money. So that was a problem. Now you've got to trust someone with your money like me or somebody else. And that's why it's important, if you saw last week's show, to know the credentials of the people you're talking to. And in a minute we're going to see, make sure you're going to get a game plan from these people. Even if they have credentials, I'm seeing people that don't provide game plans. What's the definition of a game plan? A game plan is something that's very, very easy to communicate, not only to your loved ones, but also to communicate so you can talk to your advisor about how things are going. One of the problems I see when I'm meeting with people, they come in to talk to me and they bring all their stuff, I like to say. I'll ask them, do you understand what this even is about? Do you know when to use it? Some of these people have been to even these dinner seminars and purchased an annuity, for instance, and that's a form of mailbox money. But they bring the annuity in, they say, Tony, I don't know what to do with this thing. I don't even remember why I bought it. So folks, if you purchase any kind of a product, even if it's a good product potentially, mutual funds, stocks, bonds, annuities, if you don't understand them and you don't know how to use them, you might as well just put your money in the bank at 0.5%, because that's actually even worse to have products sometimes that you don't understand. All right, so that was the problem. Now we have to trust people. Back then, Granddad didn't. What was the second reason that made it so easy for Granddad to decide to retire after all those years with Bell South? Well, he knew when he was going to retire. All he had to do was look at his expenses, go to his employer, check out how much the pension was, see how much Social Security was. He didn't need to run off to any meetings at church or whatever to learn how to budget. Granddad understand that it was real simple. You spend less than you earn. This is not rocket science, folks. And Granddad basically looked at his pension, Social Security. He could do it. 2 weeks later, he was done after 43 years. Not so for you. This is a very difficult decision on when to retire. We're experts in this field. Folks, I've met with thousands and thousands of people. If you're thinking about retiring, please get with me so we can go through your scenario to see if it's possible for you to retire. It takes a lot of expertise to do this. Number 3, Granddad did not have any retirement savings. This is really important to think about. Most of you, the majority of your savings are either in a 401k, a 403b, a 457, a thrift savings account, an IRA. Folks, that money has what we call a tax tumor attached to it. It's got fees attached to it. You've got all these government rules attached to it. Granddad didn't have any of these plans, so he didn't have to worry about it. You do. So I would encourage you, if you've got a 401k, you're trying to roll it over, you're eligible for a lump sum pension, you've got an IRA you don't understand, and you want to think about converting to a Roth, we can help you with all of that. If you've got something like that, we can help. Number 4, Granddad, did not have to worry about how money was going to be taxed. Nowadays, it's totally different. I know you've heard about this tax bracket creep that we've been talking about. The tax bracket creep is a phenomenon whereas you take more and more money out of these tax-laden 401k plans. If you're not careful, it will throw you in higher tax brackets. This is a very dangerous scenario. All these trillions of dollars have not been taxed, and they're sitting there waiting for the government to get their hands on it. Granddad had no concerns over this. This is a huge issue. If you're sitting there with a 401k or IRA, again, we can help think through this. Number 5, not sure if you will outlive your money. See, Granddad knew when he got his pension and Social Security, those promises to make those payments would last for the rest of his life. And quite frankly, that generation was not overly concerned about what would be left at death, which leads us to number 6. Granddad, Hazel, that generation, that was the first generation that was really eligible for pensions on a wide-scale basis. They had come out of the Depression. They just wanted to make sure they had enough to live on. They really were not overly concerned about what was left. If there was something left, fine, but they weren't planning around trying to leave a bunch of money to kids. Why? Because they knew the next generation coming up was doing pretty well financially. Folks, if you're sitting out there and you're a baby boomer, or maybe you're in your 70s, early 70s, you know and I know that the generation of kids behind us, they may not have it as easy. It may be very, very difficult. So now you're starting to think, or should be thinking, about what's going to be left when you die. Granddad didn't worry about this. This is a huge issue, though, that I'm learning. I had 2 clients in yesterday. This is a true story. On Monday, I saw a lot of people Monday. 2 different sets of clients. Guess what's going on now? They're trying to take care of grandchildren, young grandchildren, who have now moved in with them because for whatever reason their children are unable to take care of them. So think about that. These folks were planning on just living a worry-free retirement. There was no plans of having to take care of financially grandchildren. It's happening more and more. So as you can see, folks, there are lots of reasons why Granddad could retire so easily and make that decision, but it's more difficult for you. That's why you need an expert, a retirement specialist such as us. I'm Tony Walker. When I come back, I'm going to sit down and go through 4 different scenarios. Now, the purpose of going through all these scenarios is to help you understand the difference between a retirement specialist with what we've got, which is the Worry-Free Retirement Game Plan, versus going out and just buying a product, and how potentially dangerous it is to buy any financial product with no game plan. I'm Tony Walker. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. I'll be right back.
Worried about running out of money in retirement? For a limited time, 5-time author and retirement specialist Tony Walker is making available his latest book, Mailbox Money for Life. For your free copy, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
And now it's time for Tony in the Trenches.
Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement, Tony in the Trenches. This is a question, I'm going to read it here from Dave in Louisville. He says, Tony, I recently heard you talk about fixed indexed annuities. I like the concept, and I was wondering if I could transfer an older annuity I have into one of these fixed indexed annuities. Great question, Dave, and the answer is in most cases, yes. Now here's the problem though. If you've recently purchased an annuity, especially if it might be a variable annuity, and you're a saver and you're worried about the fees and how that thing really works, if it's been within the last 2 years, we probably can't because there's rules associated with that. So here's what I would suggest. If you have a current annuity and you're trying to understand these, why don't you order our Annuity Decision Guide for Savers, get that booklet, and then let's talk by phone or meet in person so I can review your current annuities. But you need to get a little bit more up to speed on what annuities are. So log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. You're going to go down to the books and resources, and you're going to order this annuity decision guide for savers. We'll get that to you right away, and then let's set up a time to meet either by phone or in person to try to answer more questions you have to see if it's possible or if it makes sense to move an existing annuity into one of these new hybrid annuities that we like to use. All right, let's keep going. Let's go back to our slides now. I'm cheating a little bit. We're covering some of the information I covered in last night's workshop, Mailbox Money for Life. And because of the tremendous feedback I got on these various scenarios I'm going to share with you, I thought, well, why not share them again? Because this is really good stuff. So let's do a little pop quiz. Let's put up 4 options for you. Here we go. Of all the investments listed below, let's go in order. Which of these investments provide, remember the definition of mailbox money, guaranteed income you could never outlive? Which one? Do stocks provide it? That's option A. B, mutual funds. C, bank CDs. Or D, annuities. Well, if you've watched this show at any length of time or know a little bit about what we do here with mailbox money, you would know that the correct answer is D. Only annuities can provide mailbox money for life other than pensions and Social Security. So again, order that booklet. If you're interested in annuities, if you've got an older annuity, if you've been to a dinner seminar pitching annuities, get a second opinion. Folks, we have written nearly 2,400, personally, 2,400 annuities since 9/11. We know these products. Are they complicated? Well, sure they're complicated. They're contracts. But that's why you need a game plan, and what I'm getting ready to show you here is very, very important. So here's the first scenario I'm going to talk about. This is a person age 60. They've got a 401k worth $300,000. Of that, we're looking at possibly putting $200,000 into an annuity so we can set up a deferred mailbox money account. They're questioning when to take Social Security. After discussing this with this particular client, being single, we decided to go on and take it at 62. Incidentally, folks, if you have questions on Social Security, claiming strategies, when to take it, we have a free service. Lisa in our office in Bowling Green, she's certified in this type of planning. Send an email to lisa@TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Lisa@TonyWalkerFinancial.com, but she can answer your initial questions if you have some initial questions on Social Security. Also, this person has a brokerage account with $150,000 with another broker. We're going to recommend they move that into our Charles Schwab platform. They got money in the bank at $35,000. I'm going to recommend they leave that right there. That way they can meet any emergencies they have. And they have an income need of $2,500. In this case, the person has paid for health insurance, work with an employer. That's not a problem. So they don't really need a lot of money other than $1,500 in Social Security, and we got to come up with $1,000 a month. This is going to be an easy case. So what we do is we're going to carve out the IRA. We're going to use the brokerage account. We're going to do some tax planning there to make sure we don't throw them in a higher bracket. But I want to show you the big thing here. Look at the mailbox money. If they wait in this particular contract, these rates will vary depending on when you take it out. But in this contract, it's guaranteed at age 70 to provide lifetime income to this individual of $20,487 a year. That's guaranteed for the rest of their life. And that's second half planning, folks. That's one scenario. So there's your good example. If you're around the early 60s, you have a 401k, IRA, it doesn't matter, you're a candidate for mailbox money. Here's scenario number 2. Different example. We have a married couple, 62 and 64, 2 different ages. H stands for husband, of course, so we'll assume the husband has $250,000 in a 401k. The wife has $150,000 in a 401k. Based on their 2 different amounts of income over the year, they have both elected to let's just go on and take Social Security now. Again, incidentally, there's no wrong answer with when to take Social Security. We need to do an analysis. In this case, they wanted to take it now. And one reason they're going to take it now is because they can get the mailbox money later, see? I mean, they're nervous about Social Security. They want the money now. So he took $1,500. She took $2,000 a month. They got $20,000 in the bank. Their home is paid for at $300,000, but we got a problem. In our planning, they told me that they wanted $75,000 now to do some remodeling of their home. Well, that's a huge problem because we ain't got $75,000. It's in the 401k plan. They have no other assets other than $20,000 in the bank. And if they take that money out of the 401k plan, guess who's going to come calling? You're right, Uncle Sam. So that's not a viable option. So in this case, I'm going to show them how we're going to set up a strategy. I'm not going to share that live on TV. This is proprietary. And we're going to show them a strategy where we can lower their taxes, get that home remodeled, and set up a cash flow plan to make sure they have plenty of money. And then again, at age 70, in this example, when they hit minimum distribution age, we're going to take $250 out of that, defer it in an annuity, and we're going to pay them $18,628 a year for the rest of their life. Pretty cool stuff. And again, folks, when you meet with us, the reason we're not going into all the details, number one, because the details change depending on the circumstances. This is where, like a gentleman said, he said, Tony, I realize the difference between you and a lot of people. The expertise that you bring to the table is crazy. Folks, we can document. I've literally, since 9/11, had 10,000 meetings. 10,000. Now, granted, we don't work with that many appointments, but what happens over the years, I see all these scenarios play out. We have so many clients, so many people. So what you're getting is the experience of somebody who's been in this business that can show you how to use the products appropriately to your situation. That's the difference between a true game plan with someone who knows what's going on versus buying a product and not understanding how to use that product effectively. Here's a good one. Scenario number 3. I see this a lot. Widows or widowers or divorced folks, and they're 70 and they're single. And all they've got in this case is Social Security. Now here's somebody that's drawn $2,000 a month. They got $150,000 in a CD that's already been taxed. They got an IRA and a 401k, and they're 70 and a half, and they're saying, Tony, what do we do? Well, in this case, we're going to take the 401k, we're going to meet their minimum distributions, we're going to pay down some of that CD, and we're going to put some of that money into a fixed indexed annuity with an income rider, and at age 75 in this example, we're going to send them $11,813 a year of mailbox money. Now, we will show you on the proprietary software. Here's an example of what this software looks like. You can see how everything gets laid out. Again, this is proprietary. No one else has software like that. We've created it, and it is licensed. So you have to have a license to use this software. But everybody that we meet, if you want us to take you through the process, you'll see how this works. And there's no cost or obligation to go through these planning scenarios. All right, so you can see the different ages. Now the final ages, you might say, Tony, I'm sitting here, I'm not near retirement, I'm not already retired. My wife and I are in our early 50s. I mean, we're still trying to make it here. We're not even at halftime yet. So in this example, we used a husband and wife, 50 and 52. In this case, the husband has $85,000 in his 401k. The wife has $140,000. And remember, we talked about inheritances. They recently called me, not because they can use the 401k. I mean, they can't use the 401k, folks. Those 401ks are locked and loaded. You can't even touch them unless you terminate employment or turn 59 and a half. So there's a real problem there. So basically, they took the inheritance and they said, Tony, we got some money in a brokerage account. Can you put that in a managed platform with Schwab? I can't even touch the 401ks because they're locked up. You can't even move those into any mailbox money accounts. But guess what we can start putting in a mailbox money account? The inheritance. Folks, it doesn't have to be a retirement account that goes into an annuity to produce the mailbox money. In this case, we showed putting $150,000 into a fixed indexed annuity with an income rider, and under current rates at age 62, okay, when they turn 62, we're going to kick this thing in this example, they would get $12,616 a year guaranteed for the rest of their life. Now, when you think about it, what a great way to perpetuate money that you've inherited. Number one, there's no risk associated with it. Number two, there's guaranteed income for the rest of your life. And you can use that income. Think about all the things you can do with that income. You could use it to travel. You could use it to provide gifts to your kids or grandkids. You could use it to provide tax-free life insurance. If you wanted to get into life insurance, you could use that. You could purchase long-term care. All kinds of things you could do with that money. And the beauty is, every month, that check's going to show up in the mail every month for the rest of your life. So folks, I hope you've kind of gotten a sense for how we do our planning. What I would encourage you to do, if you're sitting there now and you're going, Tony, I've never seen scenarios like this. I don't have a game plan. Why don't you log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, click on that Let's Get Started button. What we'll do, I'll meet with you personally in either our Louisville or Bowling Green, Kentucky office. There's absolutely no cost or obligation. Now, how does this process begin? When you click on the Let's Get Started button and fill out the form field, number one, it's confidential. It stays within our offices. We don't sell those to anybody. That's going to go directly to Rachel. Rachel in our Bowling Green office is going to send you a starter kit, set up the appointment. You're going to bring that starter kit into me. And all we do at the first meeting is what's called a vision exercise. And we make sure that I've got everything set up and lined up, and we have a follow-up meeting. It's a great process. No arm twisting here, no cost or obligation. Take advantage of it. Again, go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Let's get started. So does the Bible have anything to say about death, dying, and taxes? You bet it does, but first I got to get me a cup of coffee. I'll be right back.
Worried about running out of money in retirement? For a limited time, five-time author and retirement specialist Tony Walker is making available his latest book, Mailbox Money for Life. For your free copy, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
All right, some good coffee. We're ready to go. During last night's workshop, I made the comment that to be in the retirement planning business, one must be comfortable talking about death. Well, why do so many people not want to plan for this inevitable event? You know, whether it's a random act of terrorism that takes you out, cancer, heart attack, or just plain old age, we are all going to die, folks. As they said once about those funeral processions running up down the road, they ain't practicing. So in other words, this event, death, is coming to a theater near you. You're going to be the main actor too, whether you like it or not. So why, in theory, do people not want to plan? It has to be one of two reasons. They're either afraid to try to get their affairs in order because they don't know where to start, or if they get their affairs in order, there is uncertainty about what happens to their money when they die. So it's a difficult topic, I get it. But the attitude for healthy living begins with the psalmist talking about the reality of death in Psalms 39:4. Let's take a look at this, Aaron. It says, "Make me know my end, and what is the measure of my days, that I may know how frail I am." Now that, my friend, is a healthy take on life. And if we are ultimately to put our trust in God, we've got to take this framework of, you know what, we're not going to be here forever. And God, help me to understand that. Help me to realize that my days are numbered. It's very healthy to think this way. The world doesn't want us to think this way. In fact, the world dupes us into thinking we're going to be here forever. And that's why we worry about so many of these temporary things that really, in the end, don't matter. The world sets up all these hopes and dreams, which it's great to hope and dream. Don't get me wrong, folks. I love to hope and dream. But one day, those hope and dreams are dashed. Let's go down to verse 6. "Surely," it says, "every man walks about like a shadow." You know, shadows eventually disappear. "Surely," well, I got to watch this one. "Surely they busy themselves in vain." And it says, "He who heaps up riches," and then after all this is said and done, they don't even know who will gather them. So let's think about this, folks. Let's admit to ourselves that we are going to die. Let's admit to ourselves that we've got to plan for our future as best we can. But we have to ask this question: what are we really doing now to protect ourselves, our money, and our future as best we can? And if we're not doing anything, why are we putting off doing it? My point is, let's get started. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Quit putting off tomorrow what we could do today. There's no cost or obligation to meet. You can meet with me in my Bowling Green or Louisville, Kentucky office. It's easy to do. Again, just go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and click on that Let's Get Started. Well, in the meantime, I appreciate you joining us for the Worry-Free Retirement. Until next week, you remember between now and then, if all else fails, you be worry-free. Make it a good one.